welcome everybody to the call. We're excited to have everybody on. We've got a good group here. Jerry, Amy, Kendall, Susan, Lacey, Coulter, Darren, Wendy, John, Jenny, all of you, thank you and welcome. Today we're going to be speaking about how to set up an ad set. So we've gone through quite a few things over the past few weeks, and you can always go back. We send out the replays to those presentations. So you can always go back and look through that. In fact, we ought to have a page that just hosts all of the past weeks' content, so you guys can kind of go through chronologically. And there's the man, Ryan, right there. Just saw him briefly.
Wanted to get on so you could see my ugly mug this morning. Well, let's get started. Yeah, so today we want to go through a couple different ad sets. We're excited. Jenny's going to be on with us. We've been working with Jenny and their organization by the name of Pedigo. If you've never ridden an electric bike, you absolutely need to. It's one of the most incredible experiences ever. I had the chance to, we've been working with them, and so they sent us a bike to test out and see what we thought, and it's been awesome. Anyone that's ever ridden an electric bike, the only thing that I ever see on their face is a big smile. So it's a really cool, it's a really, really cool program. It's a really cool product that they sell. And what we wanted to do as part of that, we wanted to go through and see what we could do to help her maximize the results on her Facebook ad set, specifically on the ad set portion of an ad. Now, let me pull up here so you know what I'm talking about. Let me pull up here just exactly what we're talking about inside of a business. Let me share my screen. Here we go. Start sharing my screen. Share screen 2. Drop this over here. When you go and create a new ad inside of Ads Manager, there's a lot of different sections. The very first part that we've discussed in quite a bit of detail over the past is the difference between let me create this here. Okay, so the difference between the beginning portion of an ad, which would be the campaign itself, determining what the campaign objective might look like. And then if you see over here on the left, you'll see audience. I want to make sure you guys can see that. Chat in the window here if you can see this okay. The chat's public. So if you can see my screen all right, drop me a hello there, and we'll see what we can do to make sure that's working the right way. So there's basically 3 different segments of marketing objectives. You have the awareness segmentation, which is branding and reach, brand awareness and reach. You have consideration, which is really where we would talk about more of a warm audience, traffic, engagement, app installs, video views, lead generation, and then you have the conversion metric. So before you ever get into the ad set portion in and of itself, you want to identify what is the actual marketing objective that we want to look at, that we want to consider. All right, so in that context, we have now, and we've covered that in previous videos. So like Brad said, if you'd like to learn a little bit more about what we're doing, we'll have a page, we'll get that page up this week of all the pre-recorded videos that we've done or webinars that we've done, and we'll make sure to get you guys access to that. All right. Okay, so let's dive into the second section. So you determine what your campaign is. Now, the cool thing about advertising in the social media space is you can typically have one campaign, and then from there, you can go in and go into each segment of the campaign, meaning there's ad sets. And inside of ad sets, we're going to dive in deep detail today in the next 23 minutes and walk through some things that you ought to consider when it comes to running, or what type of an ad set that you ought to consider, okay? So you have audience, you have objectives, and then you have budget and schedule. So for the sake of talking about video, since that's what our last video was, I'm just going to create a video view ads campaign, and we're going to type in, or we're going to go into this segment, only the ad set segment of that. We've gone through the ads, we've gone through the creative previously on what type of format we would like to use, what type of media we would like to use, but we didn't dive into the ad set portion. So I want to dive in and talk a little bit more about this right now. And Mitch, when you've got Jenny ready to go, let me know and we'll get her on and we'll walk specifically through her ad set. If not, we can go back and come in a different way. All right, so let's talk ad set. Brad, let's go back. Give us some insights a little bit just on the audience portion. I know we've done a lot of different things. We've gone through on the front end of this. We went through and talked about creating a custom audience based on all different types of audiences. So give us a quick rundown of that again. How can we create from there?
Yep, absolutely. So once you've figured out your campaign objective, these go hand in hand. The next set is audience, and there's a lot of different things you can kind of go down this huge rabbit hole with audiences, because Facebook has the ability to gather these audiences so well. You can get super targeted with who your audience is. So when you're putting together your audience, the first thing you want to do is just ask yourself, who do you want? So in this case, with a video views campaign, who do you want to see this video the most? And as you look, click on custom campaigns there.
Custom campaigns or custom audiences?
Right. Yeah, custom audiences. Sorry.
Okay.
So right there, you would normally see lookalike audiences and custom audiences. So if you've ever done any advertising in the past, then you can pull audiences based on people who had watched a certain amount of a video before, or who are hitting your web page already, or you can really get defined as far as who those custom audiences are. But if you're starting from scratch, if you've never run anything before, then you probably want to, that's probably the purpose of this first ad set then, is to start to build that audience, start to be able to target those people who have actually seen some of your content in the past. Next, you have...
That's right. And
go ahead.
Yep, and going back, Brad, just a little bit. So as far as the types of traffic, we have website traffic we've discussed. You mentioned the video view audiences that we created, and we walked you through how to create a custom audience based on video views. If we haven't, we will. But those, like you were saying, Brad, those all become part of this custom audience. So if you click here, you can go all audiences, you can go lookalike audience, or custom audiences. If I were to change the ad account here, let me just get in a different ad account because I didn't realize that we were in that one. Let me get into our ad account here.
Yeah, you'll actually see some of those audiences in there.
Yep, for sure. Okay, so inside of our ads manager, let's try this one more time. I'm sorry, guys. I'm delaying just a little bit here. But we create a new ad set. Let's go video views again. Today, our internet's fantastically fast, as you can tell.
It's thinking.
It's still thinking. We chose the objective. And now inside of the objective, again, we'll get a chance to really dive in and look in more detail what these ads might look like. Now, again, like Brad said, audiences is probably one of the most important things. Let's talk through that for a minute. There's quite a few different schools of thought. There's the process of identifying who your target demographic is, which is what we do with a lot of our clients to get a good indication. Or there's also what we call the crop dust approach, which just basically means, Idaho boys, we live in the world of farming, and we see crop dusters flying all the time over different farmlands. But a crop duster basically comes in with their spray. It's an airplane, and they drop information. They drop, whether it's a pesticide or an herbicide, whatever that looks like. They drop it all over the farming area to help their products either keep bugs off or they help it grow. But it's just it's a broad, quick, fly-by, drop everything. So that's another way you could potentially think about creating an audience, is just by really generating a broad audience and then letting Facebook optimize. Or you can get specific and say, I want to get in front of a certain audience type. So for instance, like Brad was saying, you can see we have a lot of audiences. We have lookalike audiences that we've built. And then we also have custom audiences that we've built based on website traffic. So depending on, where these people are, how much engagement's happened, we can go in and create audiences based on what's happened there. Okay. So that's the custom audience segmentation portion of the audience. Brad, anything else you want to add there?
Yeah, as far as the crop dusting, also called the carpet bombing method, is really that might be, if you've never run anything before, that might be the best place to start, in my opinion, especially if you're a local business. Just getting out those video views and I mean, you can, for relatively cheap, for instance, if you're a business in Idaho Falls, you can get your video seen by the majority of the population in Idaho Falls for relatively inexpensive. And so
Yep.
that's probably the place to start.
Now, one thing that was really interesting in my conversation with Jenny this last week, one thing we had discussed is so they're a corporation and they have a lot of different lease dealer locations. And in our dialogue, she said, well, we're spending, ad dollars to capitalize on or potentially bring people to the location to rent a bike, right? Well, when we started talking, because there's potential of having a national campaign, that's a possibility to generate interest and pique really the interest of potential buyers. But really what we wanted to talk about is how do you, if you're a national based company and you really want to advertise, we suggest that you figure out what demographic you'd like to advertise at, and then segment those areas based on different locations. So one thing, again, one of the reasons why inside of an ad, inside their ad set has audiences, you may create one full audience based on a certain demographic. And then from there, you might create a different ad set that has a different demographic and split test those different audiences against each other to see which one's going to give you the highest performing ad set. Does that make sense? So inside of ad set, you have audience, placement, budget, and schedule. So let's dive into this a little bit more. So again, like Brad mentioned, we can go into custom audiences. We can even go location. Now, what's cool about location is, look at this. You can have people who live in this location, people who recently in this location, or people traveling in this location. So people most recently within the selected area, but whose home is more than 125 miles away. Now, what does that mean? And why would we ever utilize that objective? Maybe it's an event, or maybe you have a big, so here in Idaho Falls, Idaho, which is kind of a crazy place to have it, but they're going to be having a solar eclipse. It's kind of in the area where people are coming. It would be a very smart move for local businesses to run this type of an ad set of people traveling in this location. So if I select that, now it gives me a completely different audience than people that live in the location, right? They might just be visiting them. And summertime's always a big time. 4th of July around here is a big event as well. If you want to run an ad set, a real-time ad set of people that are visiting the location or traveling this location, it's a great thing to do. As a matter of fact, When I was in Boise, I know there was an ad set specifically that of a jewelry company there local, because I pulled in and sure enough, an ad for a local jewelry company had shown up on my news feed. And if it would have been targeted towards people specifically that lived in the area, then I wouldn't have seen that same ad set.
Yeah, that's a great point to bring up, especially for like Pedigo, for instance. You're going to want to market to people who live locally as well as people who are traveling there on vacation. And
That's right.
You set up those ads differently, not only in this one section of where you identify the location, but you're going to speak to the person who's traveling there on vacation differently than you're going to speak to someone that lives there. So you'll probably want to have those two ad sets running simultaneously, speaking to those different people.
Yep. Well, and one of my friends who owns one of the lease dealer locations, he lives in his location is right on the port where all of the cruise ships come in.
Yeah.
For a certain stop. So for him, it's going to be extremely vital to run ad sets at people that are recently in the location or just visiting the location or traveling into this location versus, again, like Brad said, positioning the message and the content in a way that like blasts the local market, because those local market people will not respond well to the same ad set if you're saying, hey, you're just in town in San Diego.
Yep.
We'd love to have you come see us versus, hey, you live here. Is there something fun? You know, you're looking for fun ideas for the weekend.
Right. Yeah. Make your memories last on your vacation. All those kind of things don't make sense to put in an ad to people who live there, but they absolutely do for the people traveling. So
now what's unique when we talked about creating an audience before, inside of Audience Insights, it'll only typically let you go to 18, but now they've dropped the advertising limit to 13. So depending on your age demographic, you can also connect with those young people here on Facebook. Now, let's take, for instance, Jenny's scenario. I'm not sure, Jenny, if we're still able to get you in here or not. Doesn't look like it.
I think she needs to leave the webinar and then come back in.
Yeah, hopefully Mitch is helping you out with that.
Yep.
So inside of here, you can choose age demo. You can choose gender, men, women. One thing you ought to pay attention to, and I'm just going to go open up a page inside of here that just shows you a little bit more detail. Did you know that inside of your Facebook page, it will give you an indication of what the largest demographic is that's on your page and paying attention to what you do? Let me show you how to access that. So if you go into your business page, open this up here. Just going to pull this up so you guys can see it. So inside your page, if you go into the actual business page itself and you go under Insights, and then under Insights, you go into People, click on the button here in Insights. Down towards the bottom on the left, it'll give you People. And once you bring up that, it will give you a good indication of who's actually paying attention to the content that you're pushing out on social. It'll also give you a good indication of who's going to engage with your content. So here it is here. People, your fan base is 79% women, 21% men. So if I'm creating an ad set for that company, I may want to just go women only from a gender perspective, or I might want to go all and see how it performs. The thing about it is, if you're not paying attention to the gender, you might be spending money and positioning content in a way that doesn't make sense. Like, for instance, I'm assuming the reason why a dermatology place has a lot higher attention of women is because they're more cognizant of their skin. So in this case, if we're running an ad set, for instance, for a dermatology clinic, then we may just want to target women, and we may not spend a lot of time targeting men because they're a lot less likely to respond to an image or an ad that's associated with skin or skincare, skin cancer, things of that nature.
Yeah, the other thing,
go ahead.
The other thing I wanted to add there is you can also look in the metrics within the ad. So if you do happen to go all gender and a fairly broad age range, then you can look at how those things are performing within the ad after you've got some feedback from Facebook. So then you can tweak after the fact as well.
Yeah, what's unique about that, when Jenny and I were talking about this in our meeting the other day, we looked at it, and 81% of the people, 55 and plus, had viewed the ad set on a mobile device.
Wow.
That was a shocking number to us because we anticipated that more people would be on a laptop computer of some sort. But surprisingly, 55 and older, 81% of the people in that age demographic looked at it on their phone or on a mobile device, a laptop or a tablet of some sort. All right, so we've got through the creating the audience, detailed targeting. This is really, really fun. So this includes people who match at least one of the following. Now, depending on the ad, right? Depending on who your target demographic is, you can just come in and type. So for this one, I'm going to just type in, let's just say it's an ad specifically for this dermatology clinic, right? So we can go skincare, and then what it does is it gives us suggestions, gives us things that might be correlated directly with that interest. I can also go in here and I can browse if I want to, and instead of just doing all interests, I may want to just take on some behaviors, go into purchasing behavior, health and beauty, and maybe I just want to do cosmetics or, skincare, some different things that I could do. Now, this behaviors are different than interests because behaviors are actual things. So these are people that are buying these products already based on consumer behavior. So there's interests, which is like, I'm interested in it, but then there's actual activity or behaviors that are happening in connection. Now, you might want to narrow the audience here and do the interests inside of natural health, beauty, so on and so forth. But then also say, well, I also want to make sure they're buying cosmetics and skincare because it says here, and must also match one of these. So it's kind of an and statement, or includes people who match at least one of the following. And then it would say, and under this, and it must also match at least one of these things. So if I do skincare again, and I put it inside of the behaviors. Sorry to all my friends on Facebook Live. I've got Facebook Live going. I just knocked the camera over inside of our Social Entrepreneurs Academy group. So now it must match both. Tripod's dying. It must match both. So now it has some of these behaviors and interests, but then it also must match at least one of the following skin, and I just put skincare. Now, what that did, if you look up here on the right-hand side, is it gave me a potential reach of 300,000 people in the United States alone that have behaviors or interests of skincare, but also are buying skincare, meaning they're known or likely buyers of skincare based on actual past purchasing behavior. Really cool. Okay. Now I can go in here and I can say, okay, I want them to also be friends who like your page, people who like your page. There might be events, people who responded to events, or you can do advanced combinations. Whereas people that are connected to a certain page, friends of people who are connected to a certain page, or exclude people that are attached to a certain page. So if you want to run an ad set and exclude people that have liked your page just because you don't want to create that much noise on your own page, then you can totally do that depending on your product and your service. Brad, Mitch, anything else you want to add? I would say we've got about 4 minutes. Let's just, if there's anything else we want to add about audiences, and the next time we can talk more about placement.
Yeah, I mean, the targeting section right there, that detailed targeting, it is just so in depth. You can do so many things. Another thing that you can do there is exclude people. So if there's a particular set of people that you know aren't going to engage with your content, then you'll want to put that in there as well. But you can, type in, think deep about who the person is. What kind of magazines do they read? If they were to read a magazine, what are the names of those? What kind of, where do they hang out? Not just physically, but online. What kind of publications online, not only just physical magazines, but what kind of blogs and websites do they go to? And when you start to kind of keep asking those questions, then you can really come in here and get super targeted with who that person is. And once you match and do these and or statements, then you can get really, really defined on who that person is.
Mitch, anything you want to add here?
Yeah, I would just add that it's very important to test as well. Like Brad said, you can find all those audiences or all of those interests or the magazines or the websites that they're reading. You can just Google, like, what are business owners reading? What magazines do business owners read? And then test each different magazine. I actually did that this morning. I searched that exact thing. What magazines do business owners read, to create an audience? And I found a list of 16. And so I did some further research on those 16. And now we can test those against each other. And then another thing I would add is audience size. So you can see over there potential reach. With this current audience, that's 300,000. The audience size will kind of depend on if you're going national or if it's local. Let's take Idaho Falls, for instance. You probably don't want to have your audience more than 100,000 if you're targeting Idaho Falls, because that's everyone there. But if you're targeting national, then yeah, 300,000, 400,000, 500,000 can be good. But you also don't want this. Okay, now Ryan narrowed it from United States to Idaho Falls. Then it's fewer than 1,000 people. That's not going to work either. So if it's local, then you probably want to have it at 40, 50, 60,000. If it's national, and this is just a general guide, you probably want to have that audience size. You can have that audience size up to 300, 400, 500,000.
Well, and the other thing that I just want to bring to light inside the context of this is there's, you brought something up that kind of struck a chord with me when you're talking about finding the magazines that people read. That gives you the ability to target them in the audience section portion of the ad set. But also pay attention to that. And here's why. Most companies spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on copywriting, especially large magazines, to get the articles and the titles right. You can piggyback your ad copy for your ad set from the content that they're sharing, like on the cover, for instance, of a magazine. They spend a lot of time articulating that the right way and figuring out the right way to attract people to buy their magazine. So if you're going back to the creative side and you get into the actual text itself, look at some of those magazines, not only from what are the magazines that we can use to target, but also pay attention to the copy that's inside those magazines and figure out how can I best use that copy to position the ad copy and my message to sync with or make sense with those people that are paying attention to those types of magazines already. Because think about it. Let's say, for instance, next month, the Entrepreneur magazine is coming out, and there's a certain topic that really goes well in the month of June, and they know they've done that research, and you go and see that specific ad copy, if you will, from an industry magazine. Piggyback off of that, because maybe some of the same people you're getting your information from are reading stuff on entrepreneur.com, and there'll be a sync, there'll be a connection and a real tight, hey, these guys really understand me if they're running ads that have similar flavor of language as I just read on the Entrepreneur magazine online or an article that I read or things of that nature. So pay close attention to that. There's a lot of correlation that goes back and forth between one element of an ad set and the other element of ad set, especially when it comes to the targeting mechanisms or the audiences that can be created throughout the context of your ad set. All right. Anything, Brad, Mitch, anything else you want to add to that?
Nope, that was great. I think I totally agree. That was a great little ad.
Yeah, great point. I don't have anything else to add at this point, unless there's any questions.
Okay. Any questions you guys have from the audience? I know we've run this about 30 minutes. I can't believe we spent 30 minutes on the audience portion. We could probably spend hours, couldn't we?
Yeah.
Jenny, I'm sorry. We will circle back with you and get you on the next event with us. But thank you very much for those of you that were with us. We're glad that you were here. And we will catch up with you again next Tuesday, 10 o'clock. And again, listen, if this information was of value to you, please don't hesitate to share the content. We will get a page up this week that has all of the previous webcasts we've done, so you can go in and access those at your convenience. All right, thanks again, guys. We'll catch up to you again very soon. Bye for now.